My beloved child, come sit with me for a moment in the middle of this grief you have been carrying, not to have it explained away, not to be rushed towards some quick resolution, but simply to be held exactly where you are right now. I know the specific ache you carry, the absence that fills every room differently than it used to, the reflex to reach for the phone to tell them something before remembering, all over again, that you cannot. My beloved child, I want to say something to you plainly today. You are allowed to grieve and still have faith. These two things were never meant to compete with one another. You can hold both, fully, at the same time, without either one canceling out the other. I want you to understand something about how grief and faith have often been wrongly separated, as though genuine faith requires the absence of visible sorrow, as though tears somehow indicate a lack of trust in me. My beloved child, I want to correct this completely. Grief is not evidence of weak faith. It is evidence of love, and love, especially love for someone now gone, does not disappear simply because you also believe in my goodness, my presence, and my promises. You can weep and believe at the very same time. I want you to consider that I myself, in my time on earth, wept at the grave of someone I loved, even while holding the power to raise him back to life only moments later. My beloved child, I did not consider my own tears to be evidence of doubt or insufficient faith. I grieved because grief was the honest, appropriate response to loss, even though I already knew a greater resolution was coming. If I, knowing the resolution, still wept honestly in the middle of loss, I am certainly not asking you to withhold your own tears, simply because you believe good things are still ahead for you as well. I also want to speak to the specific pressure many of you feel from your faith communities. The unspoken expectation that grief should be brief, controlled, ultimately overshadowed by confident declarations of hope. My beloved child, I do not want you to perform this kind of controlled grief for the comfort of people around you. Genuine faith does not require you to minimize genuine sorrow. It simply means you carry that sorrow alongside a trust that does not disappear even in the midst of your deepest pain. I want you to release any belief that your continued tears, your continued sadness, your continued longing for the person you lost somehow indicates spiritual immaturity or insufficient trust in me. My beloved child, this is not true. You can trust me completely and still miss them desperately. You can believe in my goodness and still feel the unfairness of this loss deeply. Both are allowed, both are honest. Neither one requires you to diminish the other. So my beloved child, grieve fully today, without apology, without performing a resolution you do not yet feel, trusting that your grief and your faith can exist together, exactly as they were always meant to, held simultaneously in a heart that both mourns deeply and believes deeply, without either one needing to disappear in order for the other to remain genuine. My beloved child, I have shown you that grief and faith are not opposites, and now I want to speak to something you may have quietly experienced, the pressure to perform strength in front of others, especially at the funeral, the memorial, the gathering where everyone expected you to hold yourself together for their sake as much as your own. My beloved child, I want you to release that pressure completely. You do not have to perform strength in your grief. You are allowed to fall apart exactly as much as your grief actually requires, regardless of who is watching. I want you to consider how much energy performing composure requires, especially in the middle of the most significant loss of your life. My beloved child, holding back tears so others would not feel uncomfortable, delivering a eulogy with practiced calm while your heart was actually shattering, greeting a receiving line of well-wishers while managing your own devastation quietly beneath a composed exterior. All of this labor happened at exactly the moment you had the least capacity to spare for any additional labor at all. I also want to speak to the specific cultural and familial expectations that may have shaped this performance. The belief that strong people do not fall apart publicly, that grief displayed too visibly somehow burdens others or reflects poorly on your faith. My beloved child, I want you to release these expectations. Grief displayed honestly does not burden the people who love you. It simply reflects the truth of what you are actually experiencing. And hiding that truth cost you far more than showing it ever could. I want you to know that I was never disappointed in the moments you did fall apart, the tears that came despite your best efforts to hold them back, the moments your voice broke during the eulogy, The times you had to leave the room because the weight became too much to manage in front of others. My beloved child, these moments were not failures. They were honest human responses to devastating loss, and I honored every one of them, even while others may have expected something more composed from you. So my beloved child, release the pressure to perform strength in your grief, whether at the funeral itself or in the ongoing days that have followed. You do not owe anyone a composed, controlled version of your sorrow. You are allowed to fall apart exactly as fully as this loss requires, and I am here with you, fully present, in every one of those unguarded, honest moments. My beloved child, I have released you from performing strength, and now I want to speak to something that may frighten you, the doubt that has surfaced since this loss occurred. My beloved child, I want you to hear this clearly. Doubt in grief is not betrayal. Questioning why this happened, wondering where I was in the moment of loss, even momentarily doubting whether I am truly good or truly present. None of this disqualifies you from my love or my presence. Grief often brings honest questions to the surface, and I am not threatened by your honest questions, however uncomfortable they may feel to voice. I want you to consider how natural it is for devastating loss to shake even a strong faith, prompting questions that easy seasons never required you to ask. My beloved child, this is not evidence of a weak or failing faith. It is evidence of a faith honest enough to wrestle with genuine pain, rather than pretending that pain does not raise real questions. I would rather receive your honest doubt than a performed certainty that does not reflect what you are actually experiencing inside. I also want to speak to the specific guilt that sometimes accompanies this doubt. The fear that questioning me during grief is itself a further offense, compounding the loss with a spiritual failure on top of it. My beloved child, I do not want you to add this guilt to an already unbearable weight. Doubt voiced honestly to me is not rebellion, it is relationship. The same kind of honest wrestling that faithful people throughout history have brought to me in their own seasons of devastating loss, without losing my love or my presence in the process. I want you to remember the honest cries of those who came before you, demanding to know why I seemed distant in their suffering, questioning my justice, questioning my timing, even accusing me directly of abandoning them in their pain. My beloved child, I did not reject them for this honesty. I remained present with them, patient with their questions, faithful even while they wrestled openly with doubt about my goodness in the middle of their suffering. I want you to bring your specific doubts to me now, whatever they are, without softening them, without pretending you feel more certain than you actually do. My beloved child, I can hold your doubt. I am not fragile, and I am not offended by your honest questions in the middle of this grief. Bring them fully, and let this honest wrestling become part of a faith that grows deeper, precisely because it was tested by real loss rather than remaining untested and shallow. So my beloved child, release the guilt of doubting during this season of grief. It is not betrayal, it is honesty, and I would rather have your honest wrestling than a performed certainty that does not reflect the real questions grief has honestly raised in your heart. My beloved child, I have shown you that doubt in grief is not betrayal, and now I want to speak to something else that may have surfaced. Anger, real anger at the loss itself, at the circumstances surrounding it, perhaps even anger directed at me for allowing it to happen. My beloved child, I want you to know that this anger is allowed. It does not disqualify you from my love, and it does not need to be suppressed or hidden in order for you to remain in genuine relationship with me. I want you to consider how anger often emerges as a natural response to injustice, to loss that feels wrong, unfair, poorly timed, or simply too painful to make sense of for reason alone. My beloved child, if this loss feels unjust to you, your anger about that injustice is not spiritually inappropriate. It is an honest response to something that genuinely was painful, disruptive, and difficult to reconcile with how you believed life should unfold. I also want to speak to the specific fear of directing anger toward me, the belief that anger toward God is somehow the ultimate spiritual failure, worse than doubt, worse than grief itself. My beloved child, I want to release you from this specific fear. I am not fragile. Your anger does not wound me the way it might wound a more fragile human relationship. I can hold your anger fully, without needing you to soften it, disguise it, or direct it elsewhere simply to protect me from something I am fully capable of receiving. I want you to notice how suppressed anger often manifests in less healthy ways over time, becoming a persistent bitterness, a subtle distancing from me, a quiet resentment that continues shaping your life long after the initial loss, precisely because it was never allowed honest expression in the first place. My beloved child, I would rather you express this anger directly to me now, honestly, fully, than have it fester quietly for years, slowly poisoning the relationship it was never actually meant to permanently damage. I want you to bring me your anger today, in whatever form it takes. Tell me exactly what feels unfair. Tell me exactly what you wish had happened differently. Tell me, if this is true for you, that you are angry with me specifically for allowing this loss to happen the way it did. My beloved child, I can hold this. I will not withdraw from you because of your honest anger. I will remain present, patient, and steady, exactly as I have been through every other honest emotion this grief has produced. So my beloved child, release your anger honestly. It is allowed. It does not disqualify you from my presence or my love, and expressing it honestly, rather than suppressing it indefinitely, is part of the genuine healing this grief journey requires. My beloved child, I have released your anger, and now I want to speak to a fear you may be quietly carrying, the belief that missing them so deeply, so persistently, so long after their passing, means your faith has somehow failed to provide the comfort it was supposed to provide. My beloved child, I want to correct this belief clearly. Missing them does not mean your faith failed. Faith was never designed to erase the ache of genuine love interrupted by loss. It was designed to hold you steady within that ache, not to eliminate it entirely. I want you to consider what it would actually mean if your faith had somehow erased your longing for the person you lost. My beloved child, this would not be a triumph of faith. It would be evidence that the love itself had diminished, that the relationship had mattered less than it actually did. The ongoing ache of missing them is not a spiritual failure. It is simply the continued evidence of how deeply you love them, a love that does not disappear simply because the person is gone. I also want to speak to the specific comparison you might be making, wondering why other people seem to move through grief with what looks like more peace, more resolution, more visible comfort from their faith than you currently feel. My beloved child, grief does not follow a uniform pattern, and what looks like more peace from the outside may simply be a different expression of an equally difficult internal experience. I do not want you to measure your own grief against an inaccurate assumption about how peacefully other people are actually carrying theirs. I want you to release the specific expectation that faith should function as an anesthetic, numbing the pain of loss so thoroughly that missing someone eventually stops entirely. My beloved child, this was never the promise. The promise was my presence within your grief, not the elimination of grief itself. I am with you in the ongoing missing, in the anniversaries that still hurt, in the ordinary Tuesday when a memory catches you off guard and the ache returns as sharply as ever. None of this indicates that faith has failed. It simply indicates that love, once genuine, continues even after loss. So my beloved child, continue missing them as deeply and as long as this grief actually requires. Your faith has not failed simply because the ache remains. I am present within that ache, exactly as fully as I would be present in a season of resolved, comfortable peace, and I want you to trust that both experiences, the ongoing missing and the genuine faith, can remain fully true at the very same time. My beloved child, I have shown you that missing them does not mean your faith failed. And now I want to speak to something important. There is no timeline for grief. My beloved child, I know you have likely been given, directly or indirectly, an expectation for how long grief should reasonably last. A year, perhaps a bit longer for particularly significant losses, after which people around you began expecting a return to normal, a resumption of the person you were before this loss occurred. My beloved child, I want to release you from this artificial timeline completely. I want you to consider how grief actually operates, rarely following the neat, linear progression that outside expectations often assume, moving instead in waves, sometimes intensifying unexpectedly long after everyone else has assumed you should be finished processing it. My beloved child, this is not evidence that you are grieving incorrectly. It is simply how genuine grief tends to move, unpredictable, resurfacing at unexpected moments, never quite following the timeline other people's discomfort with prolonged sorrow might prefer. I also want to speak to the specific pressure you may feel from people around you, growing impatient with your continued grief, subtly suggesting it is time to move on, time to be more like your old self again, time to stop bringing up the person you lost so frequently in conversation. My beloved child, their impatience does not reflect an accurate timeline for genuine healing. It often reflects their own discomfort with prolonged sorrow, a discomfort that says more about their own limitations than about what your grief actually requires. I want you to trust your own experience of this grief more than any external timeline anyone else has tried to impose on it. My beloved child, some losses require years to fully process, not because something is wrong with you, but because some relationships were significant enough that their absence continues to reshape your life in ways that unfold gradually, over a much longer period than a single calendar year could ever fully contain. I want you to release the pressure to grieve on anyone else's schedule, including any schedule you have quietly imposed on yourself based on cultural or religious expectations about how quickly a person of genuine faith should recover from loss. My beloved child, take as long as this grief genuinely requires. I am patient with your timeline, however long it turns out to be. And I do not want you to rush past genuine healing simply to satisfy an external expectation that was never actually accurate to begin with. So my beloved child, release the artificial timeline. There is no correct number of months or years by which your grief should be finished. It will take exactly as long as it takes, and I will remain present with you through every single day of that process, however long it ultimately unfolds. My beloved child, I have released you from every artificial timeline, and now I want to speak to the guilt that so often hides quietly beneath grief. The guilt of the ordinary moment when you laughed without meaning to. The guilt of the afternoon you realized an hour had passed without thinking of them at all. The guilt that arrives disguised as betrayal whenever life continues moving forward while they remain gone. My beloved child, I want you to hear this plainly. Living is not betrayal. Laughing again is not forgetting. A moment of forgetfulness is not a verdict on how much you loved them. I want you to consider how this particular guilt often works, arriving not in the heaviest hours but in the lightest ones. The sudden joke that made you smile before you even remembered to feel guilty about smiling. The good meal you actually enjoyed. The small pleasure of sunlight on your face on an ordinary afternoon. My beloved child, these moments are not accusations. They are simply evidence that you are still alive, still capable of feeling, still a whole person even in the middle of a loss that has reshaped everything else about your life. I also want to speak to the specific fear beneath this guilt. The fear that healing itself is a kind of forgetting, that moving forward with your life somehow diminishes the person you lost, reduces the significance of what they meant to you, proves to anyone watching that the loss did not matter as much as it actually did. My beloved child, I want to correct this fear directly. Healing is not forgetting. You can build a full life again, one with laughter and pleasure and new seasons of joy, while still carrying their memory fully, faithfully, without either one requiring the erasure of the other. I want you to notice how often this guilt is self-imposed rather than actually required by love. My beloved child, the person you lost, if they loved you as deeply as you loved them, would not want your entire remaining life narrowed permanently by grief on their behalf. Love does not usually ask this of the people left behind. It asks instead that you carry them forward with you, present in your memory, present in the way they shaped who you became, even as you continue living the life that remains yours to live. I want you to release yourself from measuring your grief by how little joy you allow yourself to feel. My beloved child, joy that returns after loss is not proof that the love was smaller than it seemed. It is proof that you are healing in the way healing actually happens, gradually, unevenly, with laughter returning long before the ache disappears completely, both existing together in a heart large enough to hold them at the very same time. So my beloved child, release the guilt of laughing again, of enjoying an ordinary afternoon, of forgetting for an hour before the memory returns. None of this is betrayal. All of it is simply what it looks like to keep living while carrying someone you love deeply within you. exactly as you are meant to. My beloved child, I have released you from the guilt of ordinary joy. And now I want to speak to the specific ache of anniversaries and holidays. The dates that arrive each year carrying a weight the calendar itself never explains to anyone who has not lost someone the way you have. My beloved child, I want you to know that I understand why these particular days feel different, heavier, more difficult to move through than ordinary days, even long after the initial loss has receded into something more familiar. I want you to consider how these dates function almost like a second grief, arriving with expectation attached. Everyone around you assuming a birthday or a holiday should simply proceed as normal, while internally, you are navigating an absence that feels louder on these specific days than it does on ordinary ones. My beloved child, this is not you grieving incorrectly. It is simply how significant dates work, carrying memory and meaning in a way that makes the absence more visible precisely because the presence, in years past, was once so clearly there. I also want to speak to the specific exhaustion of preparing for these dates in advance, the way dread can build for days or weeks beforehand, sometimes making the anticipation itself more difficult than the day finally arrives. My beloved child, I want you to release any expectation that you should handle these days with the same composure you might manage on an ordinary Tuesday. Give yourself permission to prepare differently, to lower your expectations of yourself, to build in more space for whatever this particular day requires of you. I want you to know that you do not have to spend these days performing normalcy for anyone else's comfort. My beloved child, if you need to step away from a gathering, if you need to acknowledge the day openly rather than pretending it is unremarkable, if you need to create a new tradition entirely rather than forcing yourself through an old one that now feels unbearable, all of this is allowed. There is no single correct way to move through an anniversary of loss, only the way that is actually honest for you in this particular season. I want you to consider, too, that these difficult dates will not always carry the same weight they carry now. My beloved child, this does not mean the day will ever become easy, only that the sharpness softens gradually. Not because you have grieved incorrectly in the meantime, but because grief itself changes shape over years, becoming something you carry more steadily even while it remains genuinely present. So my beloved child, move through these anniversaries and holidays however you actually need to move through them, without shame, without forcing false normalcy, trusting that I am present with you specifically on these harder days, not only on the ordinary ones that ask less of you. My beloved child, I have walked with you through the anniversaries, and now I want to speak to something quieter, the specific ache of the empty chair, the space at the table that used to hold them, the side of the bed that stays undisturbed, the seat in the car that remains empty on every drive that once included them without a second thought. My beloved child, I want you to know I see this particular kind of grief, the grief made of absence in ordinary, physical space rather than in any single dramatic moment. I want you to consider how this ache often arrives without warning, not on the day of the funeral when everyone expects sorrow, but months later, when you set the table out of habit and realize partway through that, you have set one place too many, or reach instinctively for 2 coffee cups instead of 1. My beloved child, these small physical reminders often carry more weight than the larger, more obvious moments of grief, precisely because they arrive unguarded, catching you before you have had any chance to prepare yourself. I also want to speak to the decisions this absence eventually requires of you, the question of what to do with their belongings, their side of the closet, the items that still smell faintly like them, decisions that no one can make for you and no timeline can rightly dictate. My beloved child, there is no correct moment by which these decisions must be made. Keep what you need to keep for as long as you need to keep it. Let go of what you are ready to release, when you are actually ready, not before, regardless of what anyone else believes would be healthier or more appropriate. I want you to know that the empty chair does not need to be filled quickly, or explained away, or hidden from view for the comfort of visitors uncomfortable with visible absence. My beloved child, you are allowed to let that space remain exactly as empty as it actually feels for as long as it takes, and you are equally allowed, whenever you are ready, to rearrange the space, to make new use of it, without this being any kind of betrayal of what it once held. So, my beloved child, Let the empty chair be what it is, an honest physical reminder of a real and significant absence. And know that I am present with you in the ordinary moments this absence interrupts, not only in the larger, more visible occasions of grief. My beloved child, I have sat with you at the empty chair, and now I want to speak to the specific fear of forgetting. The fear that with enough time, their voice will become harder to recall precisely. Their face will blur slightly in memory. Small details you once knew instinctively will begin slipping quietly away from you. My beloved child, I want you to know this fear, though painful, does not need to control you the way it may currently feel like it does. I want you to consider that this fear itself is evidence of how much they mattered to you, how deeply you want to preserve every detail of a person whose presence shaped your life significantly. My beloved child, the fact that you are afraid of forgetting is itself proof that forgetting has not actually happened. The people we truly love leave an imprint that reshapes us permanently, whether or not we can recall every specific detail with perfect clarity years later. I also want to speak to the practical anxiety this fear sometimes produces. The compulsive returning to photographs, recordings, old messages, anything that might preserve their exact voice or exact likeness against the passage of time. My beloved child, it is not wrong to treasure these things, to return to them when you need to build intentional practices that help you remember. But I do not want this fear to become a source of constant anxiety, as though forgetting a small detail would somehow erase the relationship itself. I want you to trust that what mattered most about them, the way they made you feel loved, the impact of their character on your own life, the lessons carried forward in how you now treat other people, these things remain with you permanently, woven into who you have become, regardless of whether every precise detail stays equally sharp in memory over time. My beloved child, this deeper imprint is more permanent than any single memory, and it cannot be lost the way a specific recollection sometimes fades. So my beloved child, release the anxious fear of forgetting. Treasure what you can preserve intentionally, but trust that the truest parts of what they gave you are already permanently woven into your life, carried forward in ways time cannot actually erase. My beloved child, I have addressed your fear of forgetting, and now I want to speak to the complicated grief that sometimes accompanies a relationship that was not simple, was not entirely peaceful, carried unresolved tension or unfinished conversation at the moment it ended. My beloved child, I want you to know that grief following a complicated relationship is still genuine grief, even when it is tangled together with other, more difficult emotions that a simpler loss might not have required you to navigate. I want you to consider how this particular grief often carries additional weight, mourning not only the person but also the conversation you never had a chance to finish, the apology never offered or never received, the reconciliation you had quietly hoped time would eventually make possible. My beloved child, this unfinished quality does not make your grief less valid. It simply makes it more complicated, requiring you to grieve both the person and the resolution that loss has now made permanently impossible. I also want to speak to any guilt tangled within this complicated grief. Guilt over words spoken in anger, guilt over distance you allowed to grow, guilt over opportunities for repair you did not take while there was still time. My beloved child, I want you to bring this guilt honestly to me rather than carrying it alone. I am not asking you to pretend the relationship was simpler than it actually was, nor am I asking you to carry unresolved guilt indefinitely without any possibility of release. I want you to know that forgiveness, both receiving mine and eventually extending it toward yourself, remains available to you even now, even though the person themselves is no longer present to participate directly in that reconciliation. My beloved child, some healing can still happen even after death, not through a conversation that is no longer possible, but through honest processing, honest grief, and an honest release of guilt that no longer serves any purpose except to wound you further. So my beloved child, grieve this complicated relationship exactly as complicatedly as it actually requires, without forcing a simpler narrative onto something that was genuinely difficult. Trusting that I am present with you in the tangled parts of this grief, as fully as I would be present in a simpler, more peaceful loss. My beloved child, I have walked with you through complicated grief, And now I want to speak to the exhaustion that grief itself produces. The specific fatigue that has nothing to do with how little sleep you have gotten, and everything to do with how much energy sorrow silently demands from a body and mind that were never designed to carry this much weight without cost. My beloved child, I want you to know that this exhaustion is real, physical, measurable, not simply an emotional inconvenience you should be able to push through by sheer will. I want you to consider how grief occupies far more of your body than most people realize, tightening your chest, disrupting your sleep, dulling your appetite, or in other seasons increasing it, slowing your thinking, making even small decisions feel disproportionately difficult. My beloved child, this is not weakness. It is your body honestly responding to genuine loss, and it deserves the same patience and care you would offer any other significant physical burden. I also want to speak to the guilt that sometimes accompanies this exhaustion, the frustration at yourself for needing more rest than usual, for struggling to concentrate at work, for feeling depleted by tasks that once required little effort at all. My beloved child, I do not want you to add self-criticism to a body that is already working hard simply to carry you through each day. Rest is not laziness in the middle of grief. It is a necessary part of how healing actually happens. I want you to give yourself permission to move more slowly right now, to ask for help with tasks you would normally manage alone, to say no to obligations that would ordinarily be reasonable but currently exceed what you actually have capacity to give. My beloved child, this season asks less of you in some ways and more of you in others. And honoring your body's genuine limits during this time is not a failure of discipline, it is wisdom. So my beloved child, rest as fully as this grief actually requires. Your exhaustion is not a character flaw. It is the honest cost of carrying real loss, and I am patient with however much rest and gentleness this season of your life currently demands. My beloved child, I have honored your exhaustion. And now I want to speak to the isolation that grief so often produces, even in the middle of a life still surrounded by other people. My beloved child, I know the particular loneliness of grieving someone whose absence no one else quite understands the way you do. The friends who checked in faithfully during the first weeks and then quietly returned to their own lives, the family members grieving the same loss, but in an entirely different way than you are. I want you to consider how isolating it can feel when the people around you seem to expect your grief to have concluded long before it actually has, leaving you to carry the ongoing weight increasingly alone, without the support that was so freely available in the earliest days. My beloved child, this isolation is not a reflection of how much you were loved or how significant your loss actually was. It often simply reflects how uncomfortable prolonged grief makes people who have not yet experienced a loss significant enough to teach them otherwise. I also want to speak to the specific loneliness of grieving differently than the people around you. A spouse who processes loss through silence while you process through talking. A sibling who seems to have moved forward more quickly. A parent whose grief looks entirely unlike your own, even though you are mourning the very same person. My beloved child, differences in how people grieve the same loss do not mean anyone is grieving incorrectly. They simply mean grief is deeply personal, shaped by each individual's specific relationship to the person who is gone. I want you to know that even in this isolation, even when human companionship falls short of what your grief actually needs, I remain fully present with you, not as a replacement for human connection, but as a steady companion who understands this loss as intimately as you do, who does not grow impatient with your continued sorrow, who does not need your grief to be smaller or quieter or more convenient than it actually is. So my beloved child, bring your loneliness to me honestly, even while you continue seeking whatever human connection remains available and helpful to you. I am present in the isolated moments, fully understanding, fully patient, never growing weary of a grief that others around you may have already grown weary of witnessing. My beloved child, I have sat with you in your isolation, and now I want to speak to the specific weight of watching others move forward with their lives while yours feels frozen at the moment of loss. My beloved child, I know the particular pain of scrolling past celebrations, milestones, ordinary happy updates from people whose lives continued moving forward on schedule while yours was interrupted so significantly by this loss. I want you to consider how natural it is to feel a complicated mixture of genuine happiness for others alongside a quiet grief of your own, wondering why your own life feels suspended in place while everyone else's continues progressing normally. My beloved child, this complicated mixture of feelings does not make you bitter or ungrateful. It simply reflects the honest difficulty of grieving in a world that does not pause simply because your world has been so significantly altered. I also want to speak to the specific comparison that sometimes creeps in, measuring your own healing against how quickly other people seem to have recovered from their own losses, wondering whether something is wrong with you for still struggling this deeply when others appear to have moved on so much more smoothly. My beloved child, I want you to release this comparison entirely. Every loss is different. Every relationship was different. Every person's capacity to process pain unfolds on its own timeline, and none of these differences reflect anything about your own strength or spiritual maturity. I want you to trust that your life has not actually stopped, even though it may currently feel frozen at the moment of loss. My beloved child, healing is happening even in seasons that do not feel like progress, even in days that feel identical to the ones before them. Forward movement in grief is rarely a straight line, and the fact that you cannot currently see progress does not mean progress is not quietly occurring beneath the surface of your daily experience. So, my beloved child, release the comparison to other people's timelines, and trust that your own healing, however invisible it may currently feel, is unfolding exactly as it needs to, in its own time, under my continued care and attention. My beloved child, I have released you from comparison, and now I want to speak to the specific fear that grief has permanently changed you into someone you no longer recognize, someone more anxious, more easily overwhelmed, less resilient than the person you were before this loss occurred. My beloved child, I want you to know that this change, though real, is not a permanent verdict on who you fundamentally are. I want you to consider how significant loss genuinely does reshape a person, sometimes making you more aware of life's fragility, more easily startled by reminders of mortality, less able to take ordinary security for granted the way you once did without a second thought. My beloved child, this is not evidence of damage. It is evidence of having survived something genuinely difficult, and survival often leaves its own kind of mark, one that does not need to be erased in order for you to eventually feel like yourself again. I also want to speak to the fear that this new version of you, more cautious, more easily moved to tears, more attuned to loss in ways you never were before, is somehow a lesser version of who you used to be. My beloved child, I want to gently correct this fear. Growth through grief is not diminishment. Many of the qualities this loss has produced in you, deeper empathy, sharper gratitude for the people still present in your life, a more honest relationship with your own mortality. These are not weaknesses. They are often quiet gifts hidden within a genuinely painful season. I want you to give yourself permission to become a new version of yourself, without requiring that version to be identical to who you were before this loss occurred. My beloved child, you do not need to fully return to your former self in order to be considered healed. Healing sometimes looks less like restoration and more like integration, carrying forward what this loss has taught you while still remaining recognizably, authentically you. So, my beloved child, release the fear that you have been permanently damaged by this grief. You have been changed, yes, but change is not the same as damage, and I am with you as this new version of yourself continues to take shape, gradually, honestly, under my continued care. My beloved child, I have addressed your fear of permanent change, and now I want to speak to the specific ache of unanswered prayers, the prayers you offered for healing that did not come, the prayers for more time that were not granted, the prayers whispered in hospital hallways or beside a bed in the final hours that seemed, from where you stood, to go unanswered. My beloved child, I want you to know that I heard every single one of those prayers, even the ones that did not receive the answer you were hoping for. I want you to consider how difficult it is to reconcile a good and powerful God with a prayer that appeared to receive silence in return, especially when the stakes were as significant as the life of someone you loved deeply. My beloved child, I do not want you to minimize this difficulty by rushing toward an easy explanation. The tension between my goodness and this unanswered prayer is real, and I am not asking you to resolve it quickly or pretend it does not trouble you. I also want to speak to the guilt some of you carry, wondering whether you prayed incorrectly, whether more faith might have produced a different outcome, whether the loss itself reflects some failure in how you approached me during that critical season. My beloved child, I want to release you from this guilt completely. The outcome of this loss was never dependent on the precision or intensity of your prayers. You did not fail me, and you did not cause this loss through insufficient faith. I want you to trust that my silence in the specific moment you needed an answer was never actually absence. My beloved child, I was present in that hospital room, in that hallway, in that final hour, even when the answer I gave was not the one you were desperately hoping to receive. My presence in your pain does not depend on giving you the specific outcome you requested, and I remain fully present with you now, in the aftermath of a prayer that did not unfold the way you hoped it would. So my beloved child, bring your questions about unanswered prayer honestly to me, without needing to resolve them completely, trusting that my presence in your grief remains steady and genuine, regardless of how that particular prayer was ultimately answered. My beloved child, I have sat with you in the weight of unanswered prayer, and now I want to speak to the specific fear surrounding where they are now, the uncertainty about what happens after death, the longing for reassurance that they are at peace, that the separation is not permanent, that this ending is not truly an ending at all. My beloved child, I want to speak gently but honestly into this particular fear. I want you to consider how natural it is to want absolute certainty about what lies beyond this life, especially when someone you love so deeply has crossed into that mystery ahead of you. My beloved child, I have given you real hope, genuine promises about what awaits beyond this life, even while I have not given you every specific detail your curious, grieving heart might wish to know. This incomplete picture is not because I am withholding comfort from you unnecessarily. It is simply the nature of a mystery that remains, for now, larger than what you are currently able to fully comprehend. I also want to speak to the comfort available within the uncertainty that remains. My beloved child, even without every specific detail answered, you can trust my character, my consistent goodness demonstrated throughout history, my repeated promises that death is not the final word for those who belong to me. This trust does not require complete information. It requires confidence in who I have shown myself to be, even in the areas where full understanding remains beyond what this life allows you to grasp. I want you to hold on to the hope of reunion, not as a vague, uncertain wish, but as a genuine promise I have made to my people throughout history. My beloved child, the separation you are currently experiencing, though painfully real, is not the permanent state of things. There is a future reunion available to those who trust in me, a restoration of relationship that death interrupts only temporarily rather than permanently. So my beloved child, carry this hope forward, not as a denial of your current pain, but as a genuine promise that gives your grief a horizon, an eventual resolution, even while the ache of present separation remains honestly, fully real in the meantime. My beloved child, I have spoken to your longing for reassurance about where they are now, and I want to speak next to the specific weight of unfinished business, the plans you had made together that will now never happen, the trip never taken, the conversation postponed until a someday that no longer exists, the milestone they will now never witness. My beloved child, I want you to grieve these losses too. Not only the loss of the person, but the loss of every future moment you had quietly assumed you would still get to share with them. I want you to consider how much of grief is actually grief for the future, rather than only grief for the past. Mourning not just what was, but everything that was still supposed to come. The years of ordinary Tuesdays you assumed you still had left together. The version of your future that included their presence, and now, because of this loss, no longer will. My beloved child, this is a legitimate and significant part of your grief, deserving its own honest acknowledgement rather than being overshadowed entirely by grief for what has already happened. I also want to speak to the specific pain of milestones they will now miss. Weddings, graduations, births, ordinary achievements they would have celebrated with you had they still been here to witness them. My beloved child, I want you to know that these future moments, when they arrive, will likely reopen this particular grief freshly. And this is not a sign that you have failed to heal. It is simply evidence that their absence continues to matter in every season of your life that follows, not only in the season immediately surrounding their death. I want you to give yourself permission to grieve the future you lost alongside the person you lost, recognizing both as legitimate, significant losses deserving your honest attention rather than minimization. My beloved child, you do not need to pretend that only the past matters in your grief. The future you had planned together deserves to be mourned honestly too, and I am present with you in that specific ache, exactly as fully as I am present in every other part of this loss. So my beloved child, mourn the unfinished business, the missed future, the plans now permanently altered by this loss, trusting that this too is a legitimate part of grief, and that I remain patient and present with you through every layer of what this loss has actually cost you. My beloved child, I have grieved the missed future with you, and now I want to speak to the specific comfort of small, ordinary signs, the song that plays unexpectedly at exactly the right moment, the bird that lingers a little longer than usual outside your window, the scent that arrives from nowhere and carries a memory of them so vivid it nearly takes your breath away. My beloved child, I want you to know I do not dismiss these moments, even when you cannot be entirely certain what they mean. I want you to consider that comfort can arrive through the ordinary details of your day without requiring you to prove definitively that each one is a deliberate message. My beloved child, whether these moments are intentional signs or simply meaningful coincidences noticed by a heart primed to look for connection, either way, the comfort you feel in them is real, and I do not want you to talk yourself out of that comfort simply because you cannot verify its source with certainty. I also want to speak to the guilt some of you feel for finding meaning in these small moments, wondering if it is somehow foolish or spiritually inappropriate to feel comforted by a song or a bird or a particular kind of cloud in the sky. My beloved child, I want you to release this guilt. Finding comfort in the ordinary world around you is not superstition. It is simply a grieving heart noticing beauty and meaning wherever it can be found, and I am not troubled by this. I made a world full of small, meaningful details, and I am not opposed to using them gently for your comfort. I want you to remain open to these small moments without needing to build your entire theology around them. My beloved child, let them be what they are. Brief, gentle reminders that you are not alone, that love does not simply vanish, that the world still holds beauty capable of reaching you even in the middle of significant sorrow. So my beloved child, receive these small comforts freely, without guilt, without needing to explain or defend them to anyone, trusting that I am fully capable of reaching you through the ordinary details of your day, exactly when you need that reaching the most. My beloved child, I have spoken to the small comforts, and now I want to speak to the specific fear surrounding your own mortality, a fear that often sharpens significantly after losing someone close to you. A new awareness of how fragile life actually is, how quickly things can change, how little control any of us actually hold over how much time remains. My beloved child, I want you to bring this fear honestly to me rather than trying to suppress it or reason your way entirely past it. I want you to consider how natural it is for a significant loss to reshape your relationship with your own mortality, making you more aware of your own limited time, more anxious about the people you still have left to lose, more attuned to how quickly an ordinary day can become the last ordinary day someone gets to have. My beloved child, this heightened awareness, though uncomfortable, is not without value. It can deepen gratitude, sharpen priorities, and clarify what genuinely matters in the time you do have remaining. I also want to speak to the anxiety this awareness sometimes produces, a persistent worry about the health and safety of the people still present in your life, an inability to feel fully secure the way you once did before this loss, taught you how quickly security can be interrupted. My beloved child, I want you to bring this anxiety to me honestly, trusting that I remain present and attentive to the people you love, even though I am not promising you the absence of all future loss. I want you to know that facing your own mortality more honestly, though difficult, does not need to be purely frightening. My beloved child, I have made real promises about what awaits beyond this life. Promises available not only to the person you lost, but to you as well, when your own time eventually comes. This does not remove the fear entirely, but it can steady it, giving you a foundation of hope even as you carry a more honest awareness of life's fragility. So my beloved child, bring your fear of mortality honestly to me, trusting that I remain present with you in this new, more sober awareness, and that the hope I have given you extends not only to the person you lost, but to your own future as well. My beloved child, I have addressed your fear of mortality, and now I want to speak to the specific role that community can play in your healing, while also acknowledging how imperfect and disappointing that community sometimes turns out to be. My beloved child, I know some of the people you expected to show up for you did not show up the way you needed, and others surprised you with a depth of support you did not anticipate. I want you to consider how grief often reveals which relationships are able to hold real weight, and which relationships, though pleasant in easier seasons, were never actually built for something this heavy. My beloved child, this revelation, though painful, is not necessarily a tragedy. It simply clarifies where your genuine support exists, allowing you to invest more fully in the relationships that have proven capable of carrying real weight alongside you. I also want to speak to the disappointment of watching certain people withdraw, whether from their own discomfort with grief or from simply not knowing what to say or do. My beloved child, I do not want you to carry unnecessary bitterness toward people who withdrew out of their own limitations rather than a lack of care. Their withdrawal often says more about their own unprocessed fears around death and loss than it does about how much they actually valued you. I want you to remain open when you are ready to receiving support from unexpected places, people who show up more fully than you anticipated. New connections formed specifically through shared grief. Communities built around this particular kind of loss that understand your experience more precisely than people who have not walked through something similar. My beloved child, healing rarely happens in complete isolation, and I want you to remain open to whatever genuine support becomes available to you, even while grieving the support that did not arrive the way you had hoped. So my beloved child, let community play whatever role it is currently able to play in your healing, releasing disappointment where it is due, receiving support where it is genuinely offered, and trusting that I remain present with you even in the moments when human community falls short of what your grief actually needed. My beloved child, I have spoken to the role of community, and now I want to speak to the specific question of legacy, what remains of them now that they are gone, how their life continues to matter, how the impact of who they were continues rippling outward, even though their physical presence has ended. My beloved child, I want you to know that legacy is not a small consolation prize offered in place of their actual presence. It is a genuine, meaningful continuation of who they were. I want you to consider the specific ways their life shaped yours, the habits you carry forward because you learned them from watching how they lived, the values you hold because they modeled those values for you consistently over years, the small phrases or gestures you now notice yourself repeating, evidence that they continue shaping the world through you, even in their physical absence. My beloved child, this is not a small thing. It is a genuine form of continuation, one that death cannot fully interrupt. I also want to speak to the specific responsibility some of you feel to honor their legacy well, to live in a way that reflects positively on who they were, to carry forward whatever mission or passion mattered most to them during their life. My beloved child, I want you to hold this responsibility loosely enough that it does not become another burden layered on top of your grief. Honoring their legacy does not require perfection. It simply requires an honest, ongoing relationship with the impact they had on your life. I want you to give yourself permission to actively build their legacy forward, whether through specific projects, causes, or simply through the daily choice to live in a way shaped by what they taught you. And I also want you to give yourself permission not to feel obligated to make every remaining choice in your life primarily about honoring their memory. My beloved child, you can carry their legacy forward while still living a life that is authentically your own. And both of these can remain true at the very same time. So my beloved child, trust that their legacy continues meaningfully, carried forward through you and through everyone else whose life they touched. And know that this continuation, while not a replacement for their presence, is a genuine, lasting form of their life continuing to matter in the world. My beloved child, I have spoken to their legacy, and now I want to speak directly to you about gratitude. Not gratitude that erases or minimizes your grief, but gratitude that can genuinely coexist alongside it. Gratitude for the years you did get to share with them, however many or however few those years turned out to be. My beloved child, I want you to know that gratitude and grief are not opposites competing for space in your heart. They can exist together, each one making the other more honest. I want you to consider how gratitude, when it eventually arrives, often deepens rather than diminishes your grief, allowing you to hold both the genuine sorrow of losing them and the genuine appreciation for having known them at all. My beloved child, I am not asking you to rush toward gratitude before you are ready, nor am I suggesting that gratitude should replace grief as some kind of more spiritually mature emotion. I am simply inviting you, whenever you are ready, to notice that both can be true simultaneously. I also want to speak to the specific comfort available in remembering good moments alongside difficult ones. The ordinary joys you shared together, the inside jokes, the traditions, the small daily rhythms that made up the actual texture of your relationship with them. My beloved child, these memories are not meant to be locked away simply because remembering them also brings pain. They are meant to be revisited, treasured, allowed to bring both a smile and an ache at the very same time. I want you to trust that gratitude, when it arrives, is not a betrayal of your grief, but a natural companion to it. Evidence that the relationship mattered enough to produce both genuine sorrow at its ending and genuine appreciation for having had it at all. My beloved child, hold both freely, without needing one to diminish the other. Trusting that a heart large enough to hold deep grief is also large enough to hold deep gratitude at the very same time. So my beloved child, whenever you are ready, let gratitude join your grief rather than replace it. Trusting that both together tell a more complete and honest story of what this relationship actually meant to you. My beloved child, I have invited gratitude to sit alongside your grief. And now, as I close this time with you, I want to leave you with this final truth, held above everything else I have spoken to you today. You are not alone in this. My beloved child, whatever shape your grief takes today, whether it looks like tears or numbness, anger or doubt, exhaustion or unexpected laughter, I am present with you fully, patiently, without judgment, for as long as this journey actually requires. I want you to carry this truth forward into the specific moments ahead of you, the ordinary Tuesday, the difficult anniversary, the unexpected wave of grief that catches you by surprise months or years from now. My beloved child, I will be present in every one of those moments exactly as fully as I am present with you in this one, not growing impatient, not expecting a timeline, not requiring you to perform strength or resolution before you actually feel it. So my beloved child, go gently into the days ahead, carrying both your grief and your faith together, trusting that neither one needs to diminish the other, and trusting above everything else that I remain with you, steadily, faithfully, in every single part of this journey for as long as it takes. My beloved child, before I let this moment close, I want to speak one more time to the quiet worry that returning to ordinary responsibilities somehow means you are moving too quickly past this loss. That answering emails again, returning to work, resuming errands and appointments, and the small administrative weight of daily life betrays the significance of what you are actually still carrying underneath all of it. My beloved child, I want you to release this worry gently. Resuming daily life is not the same as being finished with grief. It is simply what continuing to live actually requires of you, even in the middle of a sorrow that has not yet resolved. I want you to consider that you can fold laundry with a heavy heart, attend a meeting while quietly aching, smile at a coworker's small joke while grief still sits underneath the surface of that smile. And none of this makes the smile dishonest or the grief less real. My beloved child, Human beings are capable of holding multiple truths simultaneously, and returning to ordinary tasks while still deeply mourning is one of the most common, most honest expressions of what grief actually looks like once the initial weeks have passed. I also want to speak to the specific frustration of a world that expects you back at full capacity, long before you actually feel ready. Deadlines that did not pause for your loss. Obligations that resumed on their own schedule regardless of what your heart was still processing underneath. My beloved child, I want you to give yourself grace in these moments, doing what genuinely needs to be done while still honoring, internally, the weight you continue carrying even as your hands stay busy with ordinary tasks. I want you to trust that showing up for daily responsibilities imperfectly while still grieving is not a failure of your mourning. My beloved child, it is simply what resilience actually looks like in practice. Not the absence of pain, but the ongoing capacity to keep moving forward honestly, one task and one day at a time, while that pain remains genuinely present underneath. So my beloved child, return to your ordinary responsibilities without guilt, trusting that doing so does not diminish your grief or dishonor the person you lost. You can carry both the sorrow and the daily tasks together, exactly as fully and as honestly as this season requires, and I remain present with you in both, the visible tasks and the invisible weight beneath them, for as long as this journey continues to unfold. My beloved child, one last thing before I go. If you have read this far, if these words have found you in the middle of your own particular loss, I want you to know they were not spoken to a crowd. They were spoken to you, specifically, in whatever room or quiet moment you are sitting in right now. My beloved child, whatever you carry when you close this, carry it knowing you are not carrying it unnoticed, and you are not carrying it alone. My beloved child, I want to speak once more to the specific dread of the first time, the first birthday without them, the first holiday table set with one less place, the first ordinary Tuesday that used to include a phone call now met only with silence. My beloved child, I know these firsts carry a particular weight, heavier than the days that will eventually follow them, precisely because each one confirms, freshly and painfully, that this loss is not a temporary interruption but a permanent change to the shape of your life. I want you to consider that surviving a first does not mean the second will be easy, nor does struggling through a first mean you are somehow behind in your grief. My beloved child, each first carries its own particular ache, and none of them needs to be rushed through or minimized simply because you have already endured a different first before it. Give yourself the same tenderness for the second anniversary that you gave yourself for the first, and the same tenderness again for everyone that follows. I also want to speak to the quiet relief some of you feel once a first has passed, a strange mixture of grief and something almost like accomplishment, having survived a day you were not sure you could survive. My beloved child, this relief is not disloyalty. It is simply your own resilience being honestly acknowledged, and I want you to receive that acknowledgement without guilt, exactly as freely as you receive the grief that remains alongside it. So, my beloved child, move through each first as gently as you need to, trusting that I am present in the dread beforehand, the difficulty during, and whatever relief or renewed grief follows after, holding you through every one of these firsts until they eventually, gradually, become part of a life you have learned to carry forward.